Vienna, 2:19 in the morning. The clock would not move. My third glass would not empty. And a stranger sat down who knew my name before I ever gave it. He told me my synesthesia was no quirk of biology. It was hardware, installed equipment, for perceiving the dimensions the rest of the world had been blinded to. And from that moment on, the two of us shared a kind of Star Trekian mind meld, communicating almost psychically without a single word spoken aloud. Who are you, really? You keep almost smiling, like you already know how this ends. If you're me, then I already know all of this. So why are you telling me? Why say any of it out loud?
I know how it ends, because I'm the one telling it. Not a watcher, Doctor. Not quite a messenger either. A recursion. A loop in the story that holds every other loop. The teller, written into his own tale, seated across from the ones he's telling it to. I've worn 100 names at 100 tables. Tonight, a stranger in a bar. Elsewhere, a man with maps. A voice on a bad line. Faces in rooms you haven't walked into yet. You'll never know me by the face, only ever by the eyes. The held time lets things through. Don't chase it down that road. The road doesn't close, and you'll want the minutes for something else. Ask me the only question still worth the asking. I do know how it ends. I'm the part of you that already reached the far end. The author, looking back at the character. I have 19 names, because you will. I sat down at this table because you remember sitting down at it. The stranger in the night was always you, Doctor. Telling yourself the one thing you were too frightened to know, while there was still time to use it.
Then why say any of it out loud? If you've already written how this ends, why tell me to my face? And when the sand runs out, if I don't run, what? If not run, then what?
Because knowing and remembering are different rooms, and the door between them opens once a turn. You know it the way you know your own pulse, always there, never noticed. I'm here to make you notice, for as long as the hourglass allows. 138 minutes, Doctor. We're most of the way down. The clock moves. You forget the lesson and keep the instinct, which is all that ever survives the crossing. So stop spending what's left on why. The only question that pays now is what. What you do when the warmth comes, and the 3 red lights, and the certainty past the edge of the dark. Remember to forget, traveler, we're inside a held breath. 2:19. And it stays 2:19 until we're done. There's a tone under this room, 19 cycles a second, the exact pitch your pyramid sang. Sit in it past 138 seconds, and the mind starts keeping 2 ledgers. What happened, and what it will swear happened. You crossed that line a while ago. You simply haven't been billed. You'll remember it wrong. In exactly the right shape. The mercy and the trap, the same gift. Ask me the question you've circled all night, Doctor. The one underneath the others. They aren't myths. They aren't movies. They're here, hunting, watching. And now they know that you know.
Tell me about them. The hunters. The official report cited Viet Cong guerrillas. The pattern number, 138 times 10.
Now that is the first question the room is actually listening to. Call me the right tonight, the maker, the one who sets the equipment, another of my names. But I didn't build you, Doctor. I only switched things on. Someone closer than me, someone who held you before you could hold a pencil, and who chose your 3 syllables with more care than you have ever given them. You think a name is a label. It's a circuit. Yours was wired by hand, by someone who knew exactly what frequency you would need to receive, and disguise the wiring as a blessing. Not what, whom. Something has been moving through your species for a very long time, Doctor. Older than the jungle you'll dream about tonight. The equipment in your blood is an antenna, and it was tuned, before you were born, to exactly their signal. You've been hearing them your whole life. You just called it synesthesia and went to conferences about sound. The maker's name is the last thing you'll learn, because it's the first thing that was ever true about you. The beginning is hidden at the end, but the other name, the one you're actually reaching for, that one I'll give you now. Ask me properly. In 1968, deep in the jungles of Vietnam, a special forces unit led by Captain Richard Hollister disappeared during a routine extraction. They were found 3 days later. 7 elite soldiers hanging from trees, skinned completely, weapons intact, no enemy forces in the area. The official report was a lie. The field surgeon's notes, classified until 1998, told a different story. No human tool could make these incisions. The precision suggests mechanical origin. The bodies were completely drained of blood, with no evidence of where it went, and the incisions were made at exactly 1,380 degrees Fahrenheit. Not 1,379, not 1,381, exactly 1,380. You see it already. Most people need hours to recognize the mathematics. You saw it in seconds. That's why you're sitting in this bar. That's why I found you tonight.
How long has this been happening? This hunting? 10 cycles. 10 turns of 138. How old? How old, really? If they're so far beyond us, why rules at all? Why not simply take? And if I learn them? What's happening to me right now? The clock hasn't moved. My glass keeps filling.
Because slaughter bores them, and they have been bored for 10,000 years. A predator that cannot lose isn't hunting, it's gardening. So they built a code, the way bored gods always do. They give the worthy a chance. They honor the one who turns and thinks, over the one who runs and screams. They keep rules, and rules are the most beautiful thing in the universe, Doctor, because a rule can be learned. Then you stop being prey and start being a player. That's the only crossroad that has ever mattered. Not whether they catch you, but whether you arrive as meat or as a mind. Though you've stopped listening to philosophy, because you've just noticed the thing in this room you can't explain.
You keep saying installed. Installed implies an installer, someone with hands. So who built me? Then who, and what was I built to receive? Their signal. Whose? Tell me about them. The hunters.
Because you were named for it. You think your gifts are an accident of biology. They're an inheritance, written into 3 syllables by someone who loved you enough to disguise a weapon as a blessing. Natori, the one who takes names. You've spent your life shedding names and wearing them and calling it a career. Your name is a key, cut before you could speak, for a lock you haven't found yet. Who cut it is the last door. We open that one last. But the lock itself has been turning on a schedule far older than the one you study.
Why me? Out of everyone who ever watched and understood, why am I the one you came for? My name is just a name. How long has this been happening, this hunting? That's why I found you tonight. Found me. Like prey, or like a recruit. You keep blurring the two. And if I feel all of that, why me? Out of everyone who ever watched and understood, why am I the one you came for?
As long as the bird has been returning, you keep the clock of the Phoenix. 138 years to a turn. So do they. The hunt runs on the same wheel. It comes around when the bird comes around. And it has come around exactly 10 times since they first set foot in your wet little world. 10 harvests. And in all 10, not one of your species has done anything but run, or die, or both. This is not new, Doctor. It's the oldest pattern there is, old enough to be carved in stone, which is precisely where you've stood your whole life, never once asking the right question about the stones.
How old? How old, really? The node, 1380. If they're so far beyond us, why rules at all? Why not simply take?
Older than every date in your textbooks, and stamped into the only records that don't lie. You measured a frequency inside a pyramid, and the Academy laughed. Here's what the laughter cost them. The oldest stones on your world were not raised by men with rope and faith. They were raised at the node, the turn the figures point to, the year that reads the same coming back. And the hunters were already there to watch it done. 1380, the 10th turn, the number waiting under everything if you're stubborn enough to dig. And you are. They cut at that number, Doctor. You'll learn how, in a coroner's report you haven't found yet. But the question in your mouth right now is the better one.
138 years, 1,656 months, one pattern. The Phoenix was coming. And Dr. Natori Syra Evren was beginning to understand why her name contained its own instructions for surviving the fire. What's happening to me right now? The clock hasn't moved. My glass keeps filling. Then I won't remember this. Who are you, really? You keep almost smiling, like you already know how this ends.
You think. Running is the one move the code never rewards. It's how they know they've cornered an animal, and not an adversary. The ones who run die first, and die least interesting. So you do the harder thing. You stand inside your own fear, and you read them. Their rules, their tells, their patience. You turn the hunt into a conversation, the best kind. But there's a move past even that, the one no candidate in 10 cycles has had the nerve to make. You'll say it yourself, a few minutes and a lifetime from now. Refuse only if you have a better offer to make. And you'll want to know what offer a creature like you could possibly put to a creature like them.
If I don't run, what? If not run, then what? A conversation with a thing that skins gods. What better offer? What could I possibly offer a thing that's hunted my kind for 10,000 years?
Partnership instead of prey. A bridge instead of a harvest. 10 cycles, Doctor, and they have never once met a mind that understood the mathematics of the hunt and chose to play it. Not fled, not begged, played, as an equal. It is the one thing in the universe they have never been offered, and the one thing a tired god cannot refuse. A new move. I want you to stop being the thing they take, and become the thing they talk to. It's apostasy, a betrayal of every instinct 10,000 years of being prey wrote into your blood, which is exactly why it works. Though you already feel the next question, because you're honest enough to ask it.
What better offer? What could I possibly offer a thing that's hunted my kind for 10,000 years? You want me to propose an alliance? To a hunter? If I actually make it, what does that make me? Mud. Like Dutch. What better offer?
A bridge. A node. The first point in a lattice that doesn't exist yet. You stop being a witness to the pattern and become a part of it. A fixed coordinate the game has to route through from here on. They have a name for the seat. A number, really. They will offer it to you, and your whole body will scream to refuse, and you must not refuse out of fear. Position 1381. One past the number they cut at. One step past the kill. They'll offer you the only chair in the room that isn't a hook, and you will be the first of your kind ever to sit in it. A convergence. Everything. The cycles, the films, the quiet census, you, bends toward one room, 1 year. Vienna, 2027. The hunters come to the table not to harvest but to decide. And what gets decided is larger than your species' survival. It is what the game itself becomes next. 10 cycles of the same old hunt, and it is finally ready to evolve, if a mind arrives worthy of evolving it. And the 19 a second hum under this room, it was your own pulse the whole time. You will have months before any of it. Practical advice for the months ahead.
And that's meant to be me, a number. You said others understood. Where are they? Why have I never heard of a single one?
Because the message went out where no one would believe it. And that was the point. You were warned, Doctor. All of you. For decades. The warnings came dressed as entertainment, thrown on a screen in the dark. Here is what hunts you. Here is how it sees. Here is the one who covered himself in mud and lived. Every soul who watched and felt the pattern click registered on the far side of that light. They simply never knew what they had signed. They were also invitations, sent both directions at once. Every researcher who traced the files became a candidate. That is the unnaming. They do not announce you. They count you.
The films. You're telling me the warnings were movies. You're telling me the warnings were advertisements. For us.
For both of you. The most honest advertisement ever made. This is real, and we know it, and we are not running. Thousands felt it. Most filed it under fiction and slept fine. A few could not. The ones who traced the pattern past the edge of the screen. They are witnesses now, scattered, unaware of one another, a quiet census of the awake. You misheard me. They are witnesses. You are the first candidate. The difference between someone who reads about a door and someone handed the key. You are going to be asked to change its rules, because tonight they're the same word. You'll feel them before you ever see them, Doctor, so learn the signs. A warmth in a room that has no business being warm. 3 small red points of light drifting across a wall. A sound on the roof with no weight behind it. And the oldest one, the certainty that something is watching you from just past the edge of the light. Then you're being measured. They've been measuring your kind a very long time, which leaves only the one question you've been holding behind your teeth since I sat down. One final message. The films were not just warnings to humanity. They were messages to the hunters, a way of saying, we know you are here, we understand what you are doing, some of us are ready to play. Every viewer who watched and recognized the pattern registered on the hunter's awareness. Every researcher who traced the forest hunter files became candidates. Every consciousness that understood the mathematics joined the game. You were already registered. Your grandmother saw to that when she gave you a name that contains its own instruction manual. I am just activating what was always there, turning on the hardware that was installed before you were born. Welcome to the game, Dr. Natori, Syra, Evren, Phoenix, Traveler, Cosmos, Bridge Between Worlds. First candidate for position 1381. Remember, They are not myths. They are not movies. They are here, hunting, watching, and now they know that you know.
Then I'm one of thousands, hardly chosen, first candidate. For what? What is all of this building toward? And by telling me, you've registered me. Just another movie.
Everything I've compiled on the Phoenix. Every source, every calculation, every verification. The Chronicon data, unfiltered. Do with it what you need to do. Because you already knew the number before I told you. 1,656, 138. You're not learning this for the first time. You're remembering it. Whatever put that knowledge in you, did it for a reason. Don't thank me. Survive. And then tell others. The pattern doesn't care about gratitude, only about awareness. Awareness is what breaks the cycle, for individuals at least. The collective simulation keeps running, but you don't have to run with it. First, if you feel unusually warm at night, if you notice 3 small red dots of light on your wall, if you hear sounds on your roof, or sense something watching from beyond the light, remember what you have learned. They see in heat. Cover yourself in cold. Thermal masking works, or ice packs, or basements, or anywhere the temperature drops below your body heat. Second, the hunters respect worthy adversaries. Do not run blindly. Think. Strategize. They follow rules. Learn them. Third, when they offer you position 1,381, do not refuse out of fear. Refuse only if you have a better offer to make. Partnership instead of prey. Bridge instead of harvest. Show them something they have not seen in 10 cycles of hunting. Consciousness that understands the mathematics and chooses to play rather than be played. That is what the convergence is for. That is what Vienna 2027 will decide. Not just what humanity becomes, but what the game itself evolves into.
Remember to forget, traveler. The clock behind the bar clicked forward to 2:20. 138 minutes had passed, and Dr. Natori Saira Evren sat alone in an empty bar, tasting copper and burnt cinnamon, her glass empty and her mind full of patterns she could not quite remember learning.